Hello, everyone. I would say good morning, but I know if there's anybody from the East Coast, it's probably uh, in the afternoon now. But thank you very much for joining me here. Just a little bit. This is a design proposal session. My name is Manny Leon. I'm with Arizona Mesa, and also a member of the NEDC committee. It is a game day, so in my slides, a picture of our beautiful old main building on the University of Arizona campus. Hashtag bear down, hashtag go cats. Hopefully we can actually get a win today. Just throw that out. Just throw that out there. Maybe it'll manifest something. As we get started, just a quick an idea of what I plan to cover today. Um, is I'm going to go through three P's, right? The first P is perception. What do you think? What do you see? What is your understanding? The purpose, right? Why do we have the design proposal included in the NEDC? And then thirdly, practice. What do students have to do, right? What really is a design proposal? What's involved in continuing the design proposal? As we're going through the session, feel free to put any comments or questions into the chat, and then I'll either get to them as we can as they come up, or save them for the end. You can also come off of mute if you need the questions. I'm going to try to make this somewhat interactive, so there'll be opportunities for you to contribute. So you can either can contribute by coming off of mute and sharing your thoughts, or you can put them in the chat, whatever's most comfortable for you. So our next slide, right, is about perception. So obviously perception is about the way you see things, right? So for some of you, you look at the picture that I'm showing, right, and you're going to see a duck. For others of you, you might see a bunny, right? And neither one is wrong, right? They're both valid. But what I see maybe is what I'm hoping you will see, right? And as committee members, when we're putting together the competition specifications, the rubrics and everything, right? We have an understanding of, we hope this is what people see, but that's not always what is reality in the classroom, right? But in order to help me kind of understand also where you all are coming from, I wanted to start off with kind of like who's in the room. So if you could just let me know really kind of like what state you're joining from, and then also whether you are work with middle school or high school students or both. So feel free to put that in the chat, and it'll just give me an idea of kind of like who we've got here. Thank you, Margarita, for being the first there. Awesome. Okay, middle school, high school, middle school. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Perfect. And then next, the next thing is also what is your experience with the NEDC? Have you had teams participate before? Are you kind of brand new to it? What levels have you participated in, right? So is it local, state? Have you been to the national competition before? Okay, so folks that are new to it, that's okay. Very cool. Second, new team. Okay, so we got a lot of folks who are new. Awesome. Okay, good. Good. Your perceptions won't be colored by previous experiences. All right. Very cool. Thank you very much. All right. So, and this is where, feel free to come off of mute again, or you can put it in the chat. What I'm curious as kind of like the primary for the subcommittee that does the design proposal, do you all see as the purpose for the design proposal? Why do we have that included into the national plan? And since we have so many new folks here, and be like, I have no idea, and that's perfectly fine.
And it's more like a blueprint, yes, like a guideline, an outline, kind of keep you on track. It's like your plan, your overall plan. That's how I see it.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Pre-planning. Okay, yeah. Clarity focus. Is it part of engineering design? We will get to that. Yes, it is. Or are you talking about is the project part of engineering design? General problem space, ground the student in their projects. Awesome. Okay. Organize and form the process. Very cool. Okay, yeah, that's great. That helps me get an idea of kind of like where you guys are coming from. And then the last question I have for right now is kind of what are the challenges for the students when it comes to the design proposal? What do you see? And for a lot of, again, a lot of new folks, maybe you haven't gotten started on a NEBC project yet. So, but I mean, you may still have some thoughts here with the folks that have done it before for sure. You know, and the design proposal is fairly new to the national competition. It's evolved from the technical paper. But what are those challenges that students have with this particular piece of the national competition? Okay, getting from the first, it's not the exciting part. That's true. That is true. Finding the client, yes, yes. The writing, yeah, yeah. And the writing actually is part of the reason we've gone to this, right? Where before we had the technical paper, which is a much more in-depth and probably tedious piece of writing, was we wanted to make it a little bit friendlier to students, right? And break it down a little bit. So that's part of the reason why we've gone to this, using a template in the design proposal. All right, great. Well, thank you all so much for participating. I appreciate you being there. So that kind of covers the perception part of our agenda today. The next piece I do want to talk about is kind of the purpose, right? So, first and foremost, what's the real world application of a design proposal? And so, an important part of the NEDC, I think Mesa in general, right, is we want students to build STEM skills. We want them to build their STEM identity and their sense of belonging. But also, we want to help them make those connections between what they're doing in Mesa and what happens in the real world. And not just STEM, but just in general, things they might see, right? So it's like, oh yeah, you're doing these things in Mesa. And it's something students don't always get when they're in school and academic spaces. It's like, how does this apply beyond school, right? So one of the reasons why we decided to go with the design proposals is design proposals are something that are used in the real world. The design proposals are used as a way for designers to share their ideas and gain buy-in or approval for a project, right? So companies may be looking for something, or a team may have an idea that they want to bring to their management, right? And before someone wants to dedicate resources or dedicate time to a project, they want to know that it's worthwhile, right? That it's something that they should be interested in or they should buy into, right? So almost kind of like in that Shark Tank vein, right? This is what we want to do, and this is why you should back us, you should support us in doing this. And so that's the real world application, and that's what we've set up our design proposal to do. Is as that first part of the NEBC, right? Is why is this important? Why should this project be done? And so because of that, right, the design proposal should be completed really before any of the work building has begun, right? So you could, if your Mesa Day is in April, right, or May, and in Arizona we're doing this, your design proposal could be completed in the fall, depending on when you start the project, right? So we've actually set up a deadline for the design proposals in Arizona for December. Might be too early. I'm going to be reaching out to schools soon to see how they're feeling about that. But we wanted to reinforce that idea is like, this is all like the pre-work, right? Before you build anything, the design proposals, all the stuff you should have done before you start building anything, right? And some of the things we did the same thing with our teachers to say, before you request any materials for your NVC team, right? Maybe we see the design proposal, right? We want to make sure the students aren't just like asking for random things and then building something and you're like, nah, that didn't work. I'm going to completely go in a different direction, right? You want to make sure they have a solid idea of what they want to do and where they want to go. And that's just the purpose. because I thought it'd be. So secondly, for purpose, is the MESA application, right? How does this apply to our competition, right? So the official objective description for the design proposal, and I know sometimes, reading these can be difficult for students, right? So provide the non-technical overview, the inspiration for the project, right? And include information from the start until the first design idea, building, testing, additional design iterations. Should not be included. Short document, help the reader understand why the project is needed, what is needed to accomplish, blah, 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 right? For a lot of times, students, that's tough to get through, right? And they're like, I'm lost. I'm already lost, right? We've just started and I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. As a group, I'm curious, how would you simplify that description for students? How do you talk to your students about what is the purpose of the design proposal? You're going to paraphrase what we just read, and I can go backwards if you need to. I'll share that again. You got teacher pause, right? I'll wait a little bit. You guys kinds of thing. I don't have the music or anything.
Something that comes to my mind is like a T-chart, what the application is, and then what the application is not. And then it's bullet pointed on either side. Because this is, I don't know, I have to like kind of keep in mind, okay, wait, what is this and what is not this? And maybe just visually that would make it more accessible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good, thank you. Other thoughts? And if you don't have any, that's okay. Again, I'm trying to make it interactive, giving you opportunity to think about this from your perspective, right? And again, I have my ideas of what it is, but as teachers, you are the best at knowing how to present this to your students, or what's going to work with your students. Summarize the plan for the project. Meet the goals. Okay, good. Right now, fine. User need, design accomplish this. The Freyer model. Oh, I'm not familiar with that one. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about it. Curious. I'll look that one.
So, Manny, I don't know, June might not be available, but I am familiar with the Freyer model. Basically, what it is a graphic organizer. So they can define it, they can picture it, they can draw a picture, they can, so it's got like a circle, I believe, in the middle, and then four squares on the others on each corner. And it's just a graphic organizer that helps them visualize and state in different ways, like the definition or what they think something means.
Okay. Great. No, that sounds awesome. I'm gonna have to look into that, right? That's a great part of the convening, right? Is we get to share. And yeah, the presenters have information, but we all know that, as a community, we are stronger together, and where there's so many resources that folks have. So yeah, always feel free to share those. That helps us learn and things that we can then take out to our teachers, or ask them, and maybe we have a teacher who's like, oh yeah, I use that, I never thought about sharing it with the rest of our teachers. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So my kind of friendly version of the design proposal would be is you just want to tell the reader why the project is important, who's affected, what's needed, and what's your first idea of how to help. Right? That's kind of the basic of it, right? And when we think about the design process, borrowing from, I made this slide change real quick when I saw what Anita and Sarah were sharing. But when you think about the design process, right, there's these steps that students go through. The design proposal is really covering just these first three, right? Identifying the problem, doing some exploration around that problem, and then coming up with an initial design. So that's what my thought was for that. And hopefully, with that, with these, the students are feeling much more secure about what it is, and indubitably they would know what the design proposal was for. And so then I'm going really fast. I thought this was going to take longer. So you guys might have an extended break. Let's see. Or we can have some extra questions at the end. But in terms of practice, right, we're going to go ahead and kind of go through and break down the design proposal. Not that kind of breakdown. That might be a little bit further into the design process. But the design proposal starts off with the project title, right? Yeah, kind of like an intro to grant proposal, right? Some companies will use a request, an RFP, request for proposal. So they're like, we want to create this thing. We've got some parameters, but we're not sure how to accomplish it. You come up with your idea, submit it, and then we're going to choose from among all the proposals about which project we want to back, right? Or what subcontractor we're going to hire to accomplish that project, because we don't want to do it in-house. So yeah, very similar to a grant proposal or RFPs that tech companies will do from time to time. Or even I think the government will do that from time to time, right? Or like, hey, we're looking for this kind of solution. Tech firms, engineering firms that are out there, this is how much money we've got up for grabs if you want to do it. So, but as far as the design proposal goes, we've got the project title, right? So, ideally, right, this is something interesting, catchy. It shares a little bit about the project just to kind of get the reader. So if the reader was having just a bunch of title pages, and they're like, which one of these I want to read first, right? What's going to catch the attention, right? It's 20 words, 0 to 2 points. The idea is just, something fun that kind of introduces the reader to the idea. The second part is really describing inequity. And then, and what I like to tell our students is, if you look at the design proposal, it's almost like the timeline on how you should complete the first steps of your design process, right? So step one, you're going to identify the inequity, right? So you're going to work on what is the inequity that we want to work on. And so the first part for the reader is like, let's tell you right away, this is what we plan on addressing, right? This is the issue that we see. So you're just going to put a description of the inequity itself, not necessarily a whole lot of supporting data, but just a good, clear description of what the inequity is, right? And if there are connections to the UN goals to give it that global perspective, you can include that in there as well. But if you've done this before, you'll notice that we actually shortened it a little bit. So we want students to be concise, right? You don't have to be wordy. You don't have to use all of the words, the word max. That's just kind of a guideline of, don't be too verbose. So 75 words max. And then that part is worth between 0 and 4 points on the rubric when you look at the rubric. All right. The next piece, the students would share a little bit more about the research that they did, and identify who the user would be, who's their client, who's the people that they are focusing on within their project. So the community research and the user identification. And so students can now share details about, well, this is what we did we want to explain how we identified the inequity, right? What did we notice? What did we see? What process did we use to identify that inequity? And then how did we identify our user? And you would include that research that shows that you understand the issue and you understand how it affects the community. So that one's a little bit more words to do that. 150 words is 0 to 8 points. The next piece is our user profile. So again, right, following the steps, right? What's the inequity? What research did we did? Now let's tell you about who we're focused on. So you're going to describe who's going to benefit from the project, share the challenges they face, right? So if there's a good understanding of the inequity, and then now in order to set up your design, right? Who is being affected? What are those challenges that they face? How are they affected by this inequity? And then any specific needs that they have, right? So a lot of this will come from either research you've done on folks, or if you had a chance to talk to potential clients, right? You know, getting an understanding of what are they telling you, the things that they need to overcome this inequity. Now, all of the needs that are mentioned here may not be a part of your actual project, right? Because your project can only do so much. It can't be a all-in-one solution, right? But you want to understand the whole problem, and then there may be a part of the problem that you're going to focus on, and that'll be your solution. But right now, you're just kind of setting up the situation for the reader. So then the next part of the design proposal are the project goals, right? So students would list what they hope to accomplish, right? Like we're going to create the solution and the solution should do these things. It's not what the solution is, right? It's not their features. It's not the design elements, but what it hopes to accomplish. And I think we saw a little bit of confusion with that last year, where like our goals are to code this thing to do this. That's not what we're asking here. We want to say, you know, we want to create this project to fill in to meet this need, right? What is it going to specifically do? How is it addressing the need more? And that's where, like I mentioned in the last piece, right? You may give the whole picture of the user, and now you're focusing a little bit. Like now that we understand the problem, what we want to address, what we feel like what we can do something about is maybe this small subsection of the problem. These two or three needs, or maybe if it's only one need that they mentioned, we want to address, and we're going to address it in this way. Again, 150 words for that one, right? We want students to be concise. We don't want them to feel overwhelmed by having to write a lot of stuff. It's 0 to 8 points for that one as well. And then the next piece is the proposed solution. So finally, we're getting to what is our specific idea that we want to do, right? What is our design? And this is the textual description, right? What is your idea? What are you creating? You would include any innovative or unique features here. And then that's when you can explain how it's going to meet the needs that are listed in the project goal that you just did. So again, right, each piece is building on the one from the one before, right? So you're starting off with the generalities, right? Setting up the situation, kind of like you do in Shark Tank, right? Like, let me tell you about so and so and why there's a problem and what's going on, right? So you're like, yeah, I really get this, right? I can see why there's a problem or what the challenge is. And somebody needs to do something about that. Like, well, we're going to do something about that, right? And here's what we're doing. Here's what we're proposing and why you should support us. And so that's really kind of, this is that culmination. It comes to that proposed solution. Again, it's 150 words for that one as well, and then 0 to 8 points. And then the final piece of the design proposal is the initial design, right? So it's one graphic. So it's just going to plop one picture into the design proposal template. That graphic should be a max of 8.5 by 11, right? So basically just one page, probably smaller than that. It can include multiple views though. So if the students have ideas or there's like a different view of their design that would give it would explain a different feature, or if they're creating an app of some kind, right? They may have the different screens of what they think the app will look like, because they shouldn't have an app yet, right? This is and so that's why typically this is going to be something where maybe they've drawn it out on a piece of paper, then taken a picture, and then put it together and put it in the design proposal, or they might have done some CAD design, right? No building has happened yet. So this is a very initial idea. It's their beginning sketches. It's what they think it would look like. And if this idea has no resemblance to what's brought to competition, what's shown in the poster, what's talked about in the technical interview or the pitch or at the symposium, that's okay, because this was their first idea, right? It should evolve from here. It should look different, right? There should be multiple iterations that occur from what you submitted in the design proposal to what you finished with at the end. And that one is 0 to 2 points. So tools, right? So we've talked about what's involved in a design proposal. So now what, right? So we did mention that there is a design template. I think we have it as a Word document. We have it as a Google document. And then from there, it should be fairly simple to save as a PDF. It does have to be submitted as a PDF, especially if you get to the national level, right? If it doesn't come to the national chair as a PDF, then there is a penalty. At the state level, that might be different. It just depends on your state. So, follow up with your state leads on what is going to be accepted at your state level or your local level. But hopefully, right, you just kind of put that practice into place of we're gonna do it and then save it as a PDF and submit it that way. It also protects your work a little bit, right? Can't be changed by anyone, or it can't be opened up and something gets deleted and the judge doesn't realize it, the person doesn't realize it. So the reason for a PDF is it's easier to share with our judges, right? And then it also protects the work a little bit. It's not as easy to change or manipulate. So that's part of the reason why we want to use the PDF format for these pieces. And then we also have a sample proposal, right? So it's based off of a former national champion design. So while not all of the words are from the students themselves, the basic idea of what the project was and is, and then we've kind of taken and created some pieces around that, just to give you an idea, right? So students are still kind of confused, like, I really don't understand what you're looking for. Now, the sample proposal isn't perfect. It's not a here's a perfect score sample proposal. It's just a sample proposal, right? We also use this with our judges as a all right, and here's an idea that you can use with your students as well, right? If you want to get them, is read the proposal and then have them score it using the rubric, right? What are the strengths and weaknesses of that proposal? It just gives you an idea of kind of what will be included, but it may be weak in some areas. So sometimes, right, having students score other work helps them have a better understanding of what they should include in that. So that's a potential activity you could use with your students as they're getting ready to write design proposal. Of course, they're going to be doing a lot of work probably before they start writing, but the proposal will give them an idea of like what are some things you should focus on in those first steps of the design process to ensure that you have all the information you need to create a design proposal, but then also have all the information you need and all the setup to begin building and then have a successful solution prototype at the end. And both of these, the design template and the sample proposal, can be found on the NED website, NEDC website, which is there. And I think we put it in the chat already. Let's see if I might be able to grab it once I step away from my thing. But that's really all I had. Like I said, I think we're going to be done early, so we're going to have an extended break. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Do want to remind you also to do the survey. Yeah, then the curriculum, Annie from New Mexico put the link to the curriculum into the chat there. And I was going to do that as well, so thank you. And then of course there's the NED website, which I was going to bring up real quick. Not that long. But in the meantime, any questions, feel free to come off a chat if you have any questions, or put them in there. I'm putting up those links right now. So if you're still seeing my screen, if you go to the NED website and then NEDC info and click on overview, on that page, you've got the official competition documents. So I'll put that link in there. So you can see there's the handbook, obviously, but there's also the design proposal template and then design proposal example. It's called template example, but if we bring that up, we can kind of, see PDF form, right? And it's completed. And we did ask the team's permission. They gave us permission to to borrow their idea for design proposal. But when this team participated, I think we weren't doing, like, we might have still been doing the technical paper. I don't remember. New Mexico folks might remember if we were doing the technical paper then. So there were some pieces that I borrowed from the students' writing, but then also some things that I've just kind of manipulated over the years as this changed, right? So we used to do this big technical paper, which was really overwhelming for some students, and that actually kept students from participating in the national competition because of the amount of writing we were doing. So then we switched it to like an overview, and we had a template. So again, it was in order to break down the writing into smaller chunks with clear, like, this is what we're looking for. And then we've recently gone to the design proposal because we really wanted to have each component of the national competition focus in on particular areas of the design process, right? And so the design proposal really focuses in on those initial steps of identifying inequity and doing the client research and making sure that students are kind of wrapping their head around the whole idea, and that they're really understand the human, right? That's human-centered part of the engineering, the national competition, the design process is, you can have a great idea, but is it meeting the objective of the whole competition, which is to identify that inequity and create a solution to solve some of the challenges and meet the needs of the people, right? That's really at the heart. So students can have a great idea, build a really awesome prototype, and not do well at the national competition because it's not centered in those humans, right? There's not that clarity of the inequity. There's not that clear, the students don't show that understanding of this is what they told us they need, and then we built something to meet that need. It's like we built something and then we tried to figure out who it might help, right? Which is the backwards way of doing it. So I think, yeah, that's all I have for today. And real quick, super quick. On the rubric in the website may be a little bit different. So, but if you go to the NEDC website itself, not the curriculum website, that's where you can find the template and the sample. And of course, within the handbook is the rubric. And I didn't go over the rubric in this session. Just so I wanted to focus on kind of the meat of it, but if we wanted to take a look at the rubric, we can definitely do that. So if I click on the handbook, you can see again, the design proposal is probably like the smallest piece of the national competition points wise. I think it's like 30 something points or 40 something points. And that's just because, there's less that we're asking for. Yes, we can send the link to this survey. Let's see. But the rubric is very handy. Like I said, if you take the sample that we have and then have students scoring it using the rubric, sometimes that helps them understand, like, what is the judges maybe looking for, right? And there's always some variability in that, right? We do our best to kind of meet with our judges, orient them to what we're looking for from a committee standpoint. But it's really based on, like, is it meeting these, right? So project title, right, and the graphic are pretty low points because they're fairly simple pieces. But the other ones, right, does the adequately describe the inequity the project will address? So all these really touch on the students have clarity on what they're doing, right? Did they identify that inequity, or did they just kind of like brush through that, right? And quickly, like, okay, we want to help these people, and then, like, we think they need this, but they didn't really do any research into it, right? I see this come up in projects kind of every year and I love it when teachers are doing the NEDC. but sometimes either the teacher is struggling on how to approach it with their students, and they don't reach out for support, or the students kind of do it last minute and they just want to be a part of it, but they don't take their time on kind of these initial steps, and then that comes through, when they get to the regional and state competitions. But the rubrics really are one of the best tools students can use as well, right? Like you can have a great project and have done everything right, but then if you didn't present it in the right way, right, you don't have the proper information on your proposal or on your poster or in your pitch in your symposium, for the interview, right? You're not going to score well. So you can have the best project and not score well because you don't understand how you're going to be assessed, right? And so using the rubrics as another guide as you're going through the process can really be helpful for students as well. And I know Sarah's done a lot of work with the National Curriculum Committee in Washington, to help students break down those rubrics. Let me see if I can grab that link for the survey. I think it's the same one as it was before. I think it was posted earlier. If I can grab it from there. I don't have it super handy.
Hey, Manny, this is David. I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Just looking over the design proposal and then looking over some of the specs on the NEDC, are we kind of de-emphasizing or using the UN sustainability goals a little bit differently this year? Seems like there's a lot of things in the specs that say about may use or can used as a guideline and all that, but there's nothing really that says, state which UN goal you're applying to, things like that.
Right. So we had a lot of discussion about that within the committee, actually. And we thought, well, the UN sustainability goals could really help students kind of focus in, but it seemed like across the nation, people were not seeing the trees because they were focused on the forest kind of thing, right? The opposite of that, right? We're like, we've got to figure out the sustainability goal, and they were so focused on the sustainability goal, but it didn't necessarily connect to a specific inequity in their community, right? But they wanted to make sure they fit a goal. And so some of the goals are so broad, or it was really hard for students to kind of really make that connection. And we said, it's still important, right? Because we want the students to see what positive impact they're having in their community at the local level could have global implications, right? So we're helping these folks in our community, but there's going to be connections to similar populations in other places, right? But we wanted to say, yes, it's important to recognize that, but we're not going to force you to put the UN goal in there if that connection isn't clear, and if it kind of takes away from you really being able to focus in on that local inequity. So we made it kind of more of an optional. Now teachers can, if teachers feel like it's a really great framing tool, help students start at let's understand, inequity and equality at a global scale, and then we can work down to the local level from there. That's also a great approach, but we didn't necessarily want to kind of pigeonhole folks or force them into using the UN goals. But they are still really important. They're still very relevant. So we wanted to keep that as an option and make sure that it was still mentioned within the NEDC.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Makes sense.
Any other questions? I'll be here for a few more minutes. I think we have officially until like 10:45, so just like 4 minutes, and then we're gonna do a break. So we filled out the time pretty well, I think. Don't feel you have to stay around if you don't need to, but I'm here for you.
And Manny, am I correct that this is the break where they're going to be having some mini presentations, or am I off there? Is that later?
Well, I think this is our only break, so I'm thinking yes.
Okay, potentially, yeah, great.
Main room, I'm guessing.
Okay.
There, let me look at the agenda. It doesn't say specifically in the agenda if the breakout rooms will have those little mini ones, but
Mhm.
out in the.
Yes, just as a clarification, the little mini sessions will be happening during the break. We will have 3 different breakout rooms, breakout room 1, 2, and 3. I'm sure Luis will give out that information shortly, but yeah, just as a clarification, Rudy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Appreciate that.